How's it going, people? Welcome back to the channel. Before we begin today, I wanted to say a massive thank you for 50,000 subscribers. I cannot believe that in the 2 and a bit years that I've been running this YouTube channel as a hobby, I have somehow managed to amass 50,000 of you. So I really do genuinely appreciate it. But we're not here to talk about that today. We're here to talk about 10 cars that I think will be particularly good around the Nurburgring. I've seen a couple of you commenting about it, saying you wanted to know what kind of Nurburgring cars you think I'd be pretty good. So in this video, I'm going to go through 10 of them. They're ordered from least to most brake horsepower, as I normally do. Any tyres are split by 0 to 60 times. And yeah, these are just 10 cars that I think are perfect for beginners who are just looking to go to Nurburgring one time and would be taken to track days or whatever it is. Remember all the important stuff, like the fact that I'm in the UK, so prices in other countries might be different, and that maintenance, repairs, insurance, all that stuff is important to remember. And remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that great stuff. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Starting us off at number 10, we don't really have one specific car. Rather, I wanted to mention that for some people, kit cars from companies like Low Cost and Robin Hood might be the best option if all you want is a car that will happily take on the ring and other track days. The drive to the Nurburgring might not be very comfortable, considering these are usually open cockpit cars as they emulate the Caterham cars that frequent all track days. For that reason, I'd recommend finding a nice sunny summer weekend if you're planning on driving one of these all the way to the ring. The benefit of driving one of these is the focus factor. As they're kit cars, they're therefore built by Joe Bloggs in his or her garage, and they can therefore be spec'd pretty much however you want. If you want a bigger engine, fit one in. If you want bigger brakes, fit them on. If you want a massive back wing, then that's a very rogue decision, but you do you. They give you a great basis to build on from, and some of the most highly spec'd ones are insane. I've seen some with carbon fibre panels and seats, for example, which fetch quite a lot of cash. These obviously range in price pretty significantly based on those specs, but it's relatively easy to find these for under £5,000, which is why if you attend a track day here in the UK, you'll probably find at least one of them being blasted around. So maybe not the usual car you might expect me to be talking about, but around the ring you might feel like you're in a purpose-built race car. It would actually be rude to make this video if I didn't mention the Mazda MX-5, and though clearly I'm biased as someone who owns a Mark 1 MX-5 as a half-track, half-road car, it's not the Mark 1 I think you should buy. Whenever anyone tells me they want to build a car to take to track days, I always recommend the Mark 2 MX-5, which I believe would be a ton of fun at the green hell. It hosts a 1.8 litre inline-4 engine which puts out a measly 140 brake horsepower, taking it from 0 to 60 in 7.7 seconds. But it's not the power that you buy this car for, even though you can turbo or supercharge that block to get some pretty significant performance out of it. You buy these for the handling, and if you look at a track map of the Nurburgring, you'll see there are plenty of corners to enjoy. I've shown on my channel that for around £5,000 you can build a very capable MX-5 for the track, which you can still enjoy on the roads, and the number of parts available for these is just insane. I can't recommend them enough for aspiring track drivers. These start at around about the £650 mark, maybe even cheaper, and I wouldn't recommend spending the full £5,000 budget on one of these, as you're looking at some very good examples for that kind of money. Instead, spend less than £2,000 and spend the rest on parts, and you'll have a very capable car to take around the ring. And you shouldn't need to worry too much about reliability, as that 1.8 block is generally very sound. The key thing to look out for on these is rust, particularly around the rear sills, as these cars are renowned for it. And you do not want a squishy car if and when you hit into the expensive Nurburgring barriers. In 8th, we have a car you will commonly see at track days, the Renault Clio Renault Sport 182, which hosts a 2 litre inline-4 engine and puts out 180 brake horsepower, which takes the car from 0 to 60 in 6.9 seconds. These are insane amounts of fun to drive, and pretty safe too considering their front-wheel drive, so slightly more predictable handling, and more drivers might feel comfortable driving them. Get on with the optional cup suspension if you can, which will help it to handle that little bit better too. They also come with great aftermarket support. Bilstein B14 shocks are apparently amazing if you want to upgrade the handling even further, and bucket seats will fit in nicely too. You can even get a kit to replace the rear seats in an aesthetically pleasing way to save weight. These are listed for a minimum of around £1,500, with £5,000 getting on with under 60,000 miles on the clock, but again look for one somewhere in the middle and spend some cash on parts. On reliability, despite being French, owners suggest they're not actually that bad. If they've been well maintained with regular cam belt changes, the only common issues I could find were the rattling inlet cam timing variator, oil leaks, and the synchros between 2nd and 3rd gear. I really like these and would love to get out on track in one in the not too distant future. You might struggle on the ring's long straights, but in the corners you'll be absolutely loving life. Next up we have the R56 Mini Cooper S, which owners love to refer to as a go-kart for the roads because of its point and squirt handling and very nippy feel overall. It has a 1.6 litre turbocharged inline-4 which puts out 181 brake horsepower, taking the car from 0 to 60 in 6.8 seconds. Now these aren't as quick as their JCW counterparts and haven't got as great suspension and brakes, but they still provide a great basis to work from for a cheaper price. A set of coilovers and an upgrade to the JCW Brembo brakes, as well as some fresh rubber, and you'll be set to wring its neck around the ring. And from my experience when I went, you'll find plenty of R56s running around there, so potentially a good community to make some friends in. £2,000 is the minimum you'll find these listed for, and for £5,000 you get one with around 50,000 miles on the clock. However, reliability is a little bit sketchy on these, with the key issue being the timing chain tensioners going, causing a rattle, and if not fixed quickly, some pretty severe engine issues. And by that I mean new engine kind of stuff. Mini know this exists and have a fix for it, so well worth asking whether it has been sorted out beforehand or budgeting to have the timing chain checked when you go in for one of these. I'm not a major Mini fan, but I can definitely appreciate why you'd go for one of these to hammer around the Nurburgring. In 6th we have the Honda Civic Type R EP3, which has the fabled K20 2-litre inline-4 engine, putting out 197 brake horsepower and doing 0 to 60 in 6.4 seconds. Like the MX-5, one of the key benefits of going for these is the massive aftermarket of cheap parts to fit to the car, and the engine is good for a lot of power, so if you want to spend the cash you can do so without having to forge internals for anything within sensible track car power range. You also have the JDM example to buy bits from, although these parts are usually more expensive. They're renowned for being great handling little cars, with Top Gear placing it leagues above the FN2 Type R in terms of its poise and controllability on the road. If you want to go full track car on these, you can do that too, as there's the Miltech Civic Cup here in the UK where EP3s are raced pretty hard. These are listed for as little as £2,500, and for £5,000 you'll find examples of around 90 to 100k on the clock, so still quite high. Another major benefit of these is the reliability though. They're renowned for being great for many miles. Owners suggest they do like to go through oil and need a new timing chain at around 100,000 miles, but other than that it's a very positive outlook, and I reckon they'd be great fun around the twisty Nurburgring corners. If you're enjoying the video so far, make sure you hit the subscribe button, I would really appreciate it. There's 50,000 of you here already, so let's get another 50,000 going so that I can get that first plaque, you know, that silver play button. We're after it. And if you haven't already, hit the like button for the YouTube algorithm, and follow me on Instagram at CarsWithJB. I post every single day. On to the top 5 now, and in 5th is one of my personal favourites, the Subaru Impreza WRX, with its turbocharged 2-litre flat-4 engine, which puts out 215 brake horsepower and does 0 to 60 faster than any other car on this list at 5.9 seconds. As a rallying legend, you might not immediately think of the Impreza as a track car, but I've mentioned this quote before from a test driver who took one out on track. The car provides grip, and more grip, meaning it will give you a lot of confidence, which I can promise you'll need when driving the Nurburgring, even well within your driving abilities. Of course, there's a great aftermarket of parts for it too, and you also have the choice of all the different facelifts depending on which set of headlights you prefer. And if that wasn't enough, it's also probably the most practical car on this list, so you can get to and from the ring in a level of comfort. For under £5,000, these will be pretty high mileage at around 100,000 miles on the clock, and the minimum you'll spend is around £3,000. They're not perfect on reliability, but much better than the 2.5 litre block from the STI. Check for oil leaks from the cam and sump covers, as well as diff leaks or whines, and any visible rust around the rear wheel arches and front radiator support panels, to name a couple of spots. I really like these, and I want one as a future daily. I would definitely be pro taking it to the Nurburgring. A difficult one at 4th in this video, I rate the Porsche Boxster 986 as a solid Nurburgring car, but it's also starting to reach a stage where collectors are snapping them up. Fortunately, you can still pick these up for as low as £3,500, and for £5,000 you'll be looking at around 50 to 70,000 miles on the clock. There are numerous 986 race series here in the UK, and the car therefore has many parts available to get it to a decent track spec, especially if you find one with the hardtop roof already attached. They host a 2.7 litre flat 6 engine which puts out 220 brake horsepower, taking it from 0 to 60 in 6.4 seconds, and with a stiff set of H&R shocks attached, 4 semi-slick tyres and some good brake pads, these will be great for one-lap dashes around the ring and still provide you with the class and comfort that you'd expect from a Porsche. They continue to look better and better year on year in my opinion too, which is always a bonus, and you'll likely see a ton of other Porsches lapping around the ring to compare with. If you can find one with a good service history, you're in a better position than just buying one with low mileage for the sake of it too, as most problems are from lack of use. Some other issues include cracked bore liners, worn chain guides on the timing chain tensioner, IMS and RMS failures are also known issues, but not massively common. Anyway, it may not be a GT2 RS, but driving a Porsche around the ring would be a great experience regardless. In third, we have the first generation Seat Leon Cupra R with its 1.8T inline-4 engine putting out 221 brake horsepower, taking it from 0 to 60 in 6.7 seconds. It's renowned for being smooth and solid to drive, and as a front-wheel drive car it has predictable handling for someone taking on the ring for the first time. They are also raced in some series around the UK, particularly with the 750 MC, so there are some track-focused parts available for them too, like splitters, cages and wings if you're that way inclined, and as they're VW group cars they're generally pretty simple to get spare parts for. You could actually go for the S3 instead of the Cupra R to get some all-wheel drive madness, but the next car on this list will cover that off. These are listed for around £2,500 with high mileage, and £5,000 will get one with around 100,000 miles on the clock still. The 225 BAM engine isn't too bad on reliability either, but do remember that these engines are often driven quite hard. Coil packs are obviously an issue because it's a VW, and other issues are generally build and quality related. I've never been a huge fan of these, but I don't dislike them either, and they look like they'd be a lot of fun on track. In second, we have a car with the same engine as the Seat, the Mark 1 Audi TT with the same 225 BAM engine, putting out 221 brake horsepower, but thanks to its all-wheel drive Haldex layout, it will do 0 to 60 in 6.4 seconds. When choosing my car to be a track project, it was between the MX-5 and the TT, and I chose the former because it had way more cheap parts to throw on it, but that's not to say that the TT isn't a great basis for a track car. The key modification I would recommend is a Haldex controller, which you can get second-hand for under £200, as this will allow you to split the torque equally to the front and rear wheels. Strip out the rear seats, swap the front seats for some buckets, then do all the rest of the basic stuff to make it usable on track, and you'll have a four-wheel drive German sports car to rag around the ring for a very reasonable price, even compared with the Seat. The minimum you'll spend to get one of these is around £1,000, and £5,000 will get one with around 50 to 60,000 miles on the clock. Again, I would recommend spending less than that, specifically so that you can buy that Haldex controller. It's the same 225 block as the Seat, so reliability is relatively similar, and replacing the 225 block is actually super cheap. I know this because I might be looking into buying one. I rate this highly as a track car, but would always take the MX-5 over it, despite being a massive Audi fan. Even ruder than missing out on an MX-5, it would have been incredibly rude if I didn't have a BMW at the top spot in this video, as my Nurburgring experience was basically just getting smoked by a bunch of stripped out E36s and E46s with absolute nutcases behind the wheel. The E46 330 Ci, or basically any other high-powered 3 Series from that era, is an ideal Nurburgring beater. Just don't let it beat you, as many have said BMW stands for Bavarians meeting walls, so be careful out there. The 330 Ci hosts a 3-litre inline-6 engine which puts out 227 brake horsepower and does 0 to 60 in 6.3 seconds. If I had one of these to take to the ring, I would probably aim for a coupe, and as they're quite heavy, I would do like the Germans and strip out as much unnecessary weight as possible, except for the passenger seat so I can travel with a friend. You'll likely meet some E46 M3s out there on the ring too, but you won't need to worry as much about them as your car will be cheap as chips in comparison and weigh a lot less this way. With the right suspension, tyres and brakes, you'll be able to enjoy the ring for sure. These are listed for around £3,000 at the minimum, and they'll still be pretty high mileage for £5,000. If that's a worry, there are plenty of other E46 options with similar-ish performance that you can grab for under £5,000 still. Owners talk about how these require a fair amount of preventative maintenance to keep them running well, and if this hasn't been the case, problems can arise. From what I've seen on forums, they're good for up to around about 150,000 miles before they become a real pain to deal with. One thing's for certain though, you'll definitely fit in at the ring in one of these. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, do make sure to hit the like button. I would really appreciate it. As well, subscribe if you're new. And a huge thank you to the patrons for all of their continued support. I really do appreciate it. And to all of you guys for 50,000 subscribers. Again, unreal. But as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.